Hey guys, it's Sean, and I'm here to introduce you guys to another bonus episode of ReelBlend, this time an interview with King Richard director Reinaldo Marcus Green, who was nice enough to join the show to talk about his upcoming film. If you've been hearing any news about what this film is about, it is sort of the early years of Venus and Serena Williams, with more of an emphasis on Venus and the training that she went through, that both of them went through, with their father, Richard, who's played by Will Smith. And the entire film is getting a lot of awards attention, specifically geared towards Smith and his performance as Richard. And it's not an overbearing performance necessarily, but it's just a dominant father role who sees something really special in his daughters and the way that they're able to play tennis and wants to make sure that they get all of the opportunities that he feels that they deserve to excel in their sport. Reinaldo is a really talented director who's still a bit of an up-and-comer and is using this film as an opportunity to sort of put forward the type of work that he is capable of doing, and ends up being an incredible conversation just about the things that they had to overcome on the set. I know that it's a Will Smith movie and that it's about Venus and Serena, but it really does feel like the way that they shot and the duration of the production felt like an indie schedule, and the way that they had to stay really nimble and shoot around Los Angeles and key neighborhoods of Southern California that were integral to the point of this story. So I want you to hear directly from Ray, terrific storyteller, really interesting director, and a great story, and especially in terms of working with Will Smith and having Venus and Serena come by his set. So without further ado, on behalf of King Richard, this is director Reinaldo Marcus Green on ReelBlend. Because I can't believe that your young actors, and tell me if this is true, they met Venus and Serena for the first time on the film's set?
That's right. That is right. And, it was waterworks all the way through. I think they were carrying that for months, having practice and hearing about them and hearing the stories of maybe they're going to come visit or when they were going to come visit. Obviously they're both professional athletes, so their schedules are insane, but they made the time to come to set a couple of times actually. But that was a very special moment for all of us, certainly. And Sanaya and Demi were just over the moon.
I was kind of amazed, but that means they didn't have that much input into the casting of who played them?
No, I mean, look, Isha Price is a producer on the film. And so, there was daily communications with her. And I know Isha, they have their own group, like WhatsApp. So I know they're chatting, like there's definitely things going on, and all the sisters are very hyper aware. But in terms of the day to day, of course, look, we were building a movie and picking our choices, and then I'm sure they were sharing who we were deciding that we wanted to go with. But for certainly we were building a movie and including them and in that process, Isha being a producer was involved in those decisions for sure, and rightfully so. The respect. I would never have made the film without the having the support of the family. I mean, we're making a film about them. I need their input. I want to meet them. I want to hear them. I want to hear their story. And so we were soliciting at all times. It's obviously trying to pin down their schedules is tricky, but they were amazing collaborators. Isha, what a wonderful human being, what a wonderful family. We got lucky for sure.
Yeah. Ray, we're going to dive in a little bit later in the interview about Bob Elswit, because I want to geek out about that, because he's just a brilliant DP. But one of the messages in this film were incredible, because one of the things that came across to me was you can prep and rehearse and get physically ready for a moment, but then the mental aspect can take that all away instantly, and you can be paralyzed. And we see that in the film at times. And I found that really interesting, because I wanted to ask you, as a filmmaker, when you go into a project and you're prepping and you're rehearsing and you're getting all the things right, and let's say you show up on a day and there's a mental aspect that's maybe throwing you off. Can you talk about that comparison and kind of maybe like how you would work through something like that? I know filmmaking and athletics are different, but they have a similar vibe.
I mean, look, I could tell you two of the best scenes in the movie were, part of me messing it up and having to reshoot one, and the other one just went on too long. So the kitchen scene in the film, that's
my favorite, best scene in the movie, by the way. Oh my God.
And it's crazy because we had to find this house that was South Florida. And, the production designer was like, okay, so you can use this part of the house, and the only room that's a no-go is the kitchen. And so the actors show up, Will and Anjana show up, and the first place they go is in the kitchen. And I'm just looking and I'm like, oh my God, maybe they're just, they're going to move. I never tell an actor where to go. That's just not, we obviously have cameras placed and there's freedom, like let's block it and see where we're going to go. And then we adjust from there. Right. And so when they went to the kitchen, it was like, oh my God, we're not designed for the kitchen. How are we going to do the scene in the kitchen? This is not good. But the scene was turning out amazing. What am I going to tell the actor? No, because we didn't production design it. It's like, let's go with the flow here. That scene also spilled into the afternoon. It was supposed to be done at lunch, and we ended up like going till the end of the day.
Oh, wow.
And squeezing in the scene with Serena and Will, which was supposed to happen in the house. So by virtue of me messing up that scene, I had to then move it to the court. We had to move it outside because we were shooting, at that venue, and we had to find a place at that venue to do it. So, sometimes there's happy accidents that happen. You have to work through those things because you're getting magic in those moments. And so it's a combination of being flexible in order to do that, having actors that are willing to go there and do that. And then learning from your mistakes. There was a little bit of combination of those things and not giving up on it. I think it's one of those things that scene could have been dropped, and it wasn't. We knew it was critical to the story. And I said, you know what, let's make time for it when we go. And actually, it's a better place for it because I was thinking about Rudy, one of my favorite movies. And I was like, man, when Rudy like skips his last practice and then like goes out to the court and looks at that field, I was like, that's like kind of what Serena's feeling. Like, what if we scripted it there? And then, and it ended up being magical, but I shot it. We shot it in the house on the staircase, and it was kind of messy. I remember Will like, this is going to make the movie, right? And I was like, I don't know, like I just kind of joked about it because it was like a mess. We were running out of natural light. Robert was looking at me. It was just bad. It was all bad. We completely, like all of us, I'll take the blame. I dropped the ball, and but it just was, I was happy that I did because I got a chance to make up for my interception, so to speak.
Let me tell you, I was watching that kitchen scene. If I had my notes in front of me right now, that is the scene that I wrote. I mean, I get chills just thinking about it. Like, that scene is so incredible. And for people out there listening to this right now who haven't seen the film, we're not spoiling anything, but just pay attention to that scene because that is one of the key arcs to both of their characters, and it's such what a brilliant scene. So that's amazing how it worked out that way.
No, thank you so much. And look, Zach Balin wrote an amazing script, and so he gave us a foundation for us to play with. And I have a very improvisational style, and so allowing the actors to give room and to improv at times, and so the script is not a rigid thing. It's a constantly evolving thing. And, keeping Zach involved in that process, I think we ended up being very, very good collaborators, so much that we're working on the Bob Marley biopic together. So yeah, it was a great process. We had great, and look, Will is amazing. I mean, he's amazing in the role. He was completely locked in. I don't know if it was the short shorts or whatever, but like that dude locked in, and what you see is what you get.
I laughed so hard watching that featurette when Serena is on set and she's calling him daddy. And I was like, well, it's got to be surreal for her to see this guy who actually looks...
It was so cool when they showed up. I mean, it's just, you're like, how many legends in one frame,
Right.
Like, this is like unreal. You couldn't have written it any better. And, but how humble they are, they really, as as we depict in the film, they come from truly humble beginnings. Right. And it wasn't just about Venus and Serena. It was 5 girls in that VW bus.
Yes.
5 girls picking up balls. It was 5 girls hanging signs. And you're like, man, whoa, like, this is different. This is not, this isn't just your typical sports movie. This is something else. It's layered, it's rich. It's got all these layers to it. And so, those were the aspects I wanted to lean into because it was what we didn't know about them. It was all the things. So I think that's, it gives the film a little bit of an unexpectedness, when Will passes gas in a scene.
I love that moment.
It's unexpected. And I think that's what makes the film keep you on your edge. He's constantly one-upping the other coaches, and you have all of those layers in there, and we'll talk about the cinematography and the music and the set design and all the other layers that we tried to add there. But But the cast was remarkable. I could not have asked for a better cast, including John Bernthal and Tony Goldwyn, just aces in the hole, man. Those guys were true warriors. Completely helped to elevate this movie in a way that I don't think it would have been as elevated if it weren't for them. So tip my cap to those guys, and of course Demi and Sanaya, like, to do what they did at 13 years old or 12, like, it's nuts. I mean, the pressure of carrying the legacy of living legends, but then learning how to play tennis. Like, Sanaya's left-handed, like, you know what I mean? She had to learn how to hit with her right hand. Like, the amount of practice that they had to go through, the amount of like work, and we pushed them. Look, I was not easy. You
were King Richard. You were King
Richard. But, hopefully they respect the final product, because I definitely, like, I'm a loving parent, but I'm tough, and that's I think everybody expects we all demanded excellence from each other, and I think, of course, look, I had an experience as I was a kindergarten teacher. I taught kindergarten through fifth grade. So I've dealt with young children before. I taught middle school. And so I know what it's like, teaching and working with children that can push themselves in a way that's respectful, but getting something out of someone. And I think they were willing to go there. We had really, really amazing young talents, and look, they had no athletic ability. Like, they were not athletes, they're theater kids, and they taught themselves how to become two of the greatest tennis players of all time, which is pretty amazing. So I cannot wait to see what those girls do in their career.
Well, I'm glad you kind of led into that about them having to pretend to be athletes, because one of the things about the evolution of sports movies is it's just different ways you can shoot the game. And tennis is obviously something that we've seen portrayed on TV so many times. So I wanted to hear about your approach to making the game cinematic in the moments where you needed to shoot. Are there things that you maybe picked up from TV broadcasts, or even things that you didn't want to do because they're overplayed?
Yeah, like, look, I had a genius, in my corner. Robert Elswit is one of the greatest living American cinematographers known to man, and I was a huge fan. And luckily for me, I met him like with my first feature, like just random. Like, I was at the Sundance Lab, and Robert Elswit so happened to be an advisor. So it's this weird organic relationship. And when this movie came, I was like, man, maybe I can get Robert to do it. And he was so game to do it. And when I met him, let me tell you, like, here, I think he's 72 now, but at the time, maybe a 70-year-old man, like, with the energy of like a 15-year-old. Like, he's an encyclopedia of film. He's basically seen every movie that's ever been made. If you're like me or the average person, you like look at okay, I like that, and maybe I'll watch that, and maybe I'll watch it. Like, he just watches everything. Right. So like, it's not like I like it or I don't like it. It's like, I just watched it, and you're like, wait, so you go to the movies to see all the things you might not like? He doesn't think about it that way. He just it's like I have to read everything that comes to me. And so we started dating. Like, I would go to the movies with Robert Elswit, and we'd watch a lot of movies together. And like that was like how we started. I remember. Can
I go with you guys, please?
Anytime. And I was like, I'm gonna be the best student. Like, I'm gonna come on this film, and I'm gonna
that's film school.
It was the film school after film school. I went to NYU, and I spent, I had a student loan of $330,000. Like, it was no joke. But I was like, this is the film school right here. Yeah. And I'm going to move out to the West Side because he lives on the West Side, and I'm going to be his neighbor. And I'm just going to stalk Robert Elswit, and it was amazing. Like, we never talked camera or lenses or any of that stuff. It was story, character, breaking down all of the weak points. And when I say weak, like anything that felt like it needed to be enriched or layered. And it was constantly pushing for that. And his work ethic is second to none. Like I said, just incredible energy, incredible historian. And we did a lot of pre-visualizations with tennis. So we went out to the field and we failed a lot. We just it was like practicing and just being really bad at first, and then just saying, oh, okay, like, let's keep playing and let's go here. Let's move the cameras here, and finding out where we want it to be. One of the first things I said to the producers, and like, I don't want any action. This is not action shots here, right? Like, I'm not making a Nike commercial. I don't want anything that feels like that. I want it to feel cinematic. I want it to feel elevated, like where we are on the court. And tennis, is unlike any other sport. It's not like boxing where you can go to your corner, or baseball, you call timeout and the pitcher can, you can take a break and try to collect yourself. Unless there's like a bathroom break, there are no breaks in tennis. And so I wanted the film to feel that. And like, for me, as someone that didn't grow up with tennis, didn't grow up around the game, I was like, I don't know how many people are going to care about that. Like, they just want to, we need enough tennis to service the movie and the emotion of the story. That's like what the tennis needs to do. And so all of my conversations with Robert were really about that, and not getting Richard lost in that story, because we have a story that is Richard, but then, Venus is taking agency at a particular point in our story, and how it's a delicate balance without losing, power structure, or, where do we go from there? And so just making sure we were carefully tracking that emotional arc throughout, and how the tennis played into all of those things. And so instead of it just being tennis sequence, it was like, oh, let's talk about the open stance, which is something that the family and, the girls revolutionized the way the game was played. Like, that's a story point. That's something that we can use to our advantage. It was a power game. The way they played the game was different than the way everybody else was playing. And so we tried to tap into those, try to be specific about the story so that we can select our shots, and made making the shots and composing those things a lot easier once we cracked the story. But it took months. It took months of us thinking about juniors and what we were going to show there. And then, we see them hitting, but like, it's about the evolution and the tennis and Richard and the family and all the things that he was experiencing in that process. And so none of the tennis feels arbitrary. It feels specific because it is. It's really all about that. And how do we connect the family to all of the tennis in there? So you have all these reaction shots of the family and cheering along. It's not just 2 girls, it's 5 girls. And so it's a lot more layered, because we really thought about that when we were building out those sequences. And, look, I couldn't ask for a better collaborator, and Robert, the lighting, he does all that technical stuff. He knows all the names of, the lenses and all that stuff. And we talk about composition, we talk about story, we talk about where we're going to be in proximity. And then, of course, giving me the time to work with actors, which is what I love to do, and concentrate on performance. But blocking is a huge thing that we, have worked on together. Background action is such an important thing and can make or break stuff. And Robert's a real stickler for that. And it was kind of great to work with somebody that's like, looking so deep in the background. And, it's not just about what's in the foreground. It's everything.
Like at the Florida camp, I really paid attention to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. So there's a lot of intention that goes into the blocking and simplicity. And that's what I love. There's a simplicity to it, and it's very difficult to make it simple, because you start throwing the kitchen sink at things that aren't working. And I think there's something very elegant about designing something that you can stay in a 2-shot, much longer, and you can hold something longer. When Richard and Macy are talking, we don't have to, it doesn't have to be traditional coverage, and so we can let things breathe. Not everything deserves a close-up, and we try to reserve those moments in our film so that when we use them, they land. And a lot of that was just conversation, and a lot of that was confidence. And when you're with when you're with someone with that level of confidence in how to lend something, it gives you confidence. And then once the performances are there, it's like, man, let the performances breathe. They're doing it. They're crushing it. Like, I don't have to cut here. And it made my job a lot easier that we had this stellar cast and this incredible crew. And look, Robert was my main sort of, I would call, fullback on the set. And that, but I definitely had a lot of wide receivers and some running backs. I was able to drop back in the pocket and feel protected.
Well, I mean, Elswit is, we talk about that a lot because we're a filmmaking show, and, obviously There Will Be Blood is one of the greatest movies ever made. But I wanted to ask you, so this is something I found interesting. So obviously the serves, the moments in the serve shots are like so beautiful. And I found those to be amazing. One of the things Tony Goldwyn was telling me yesterday, which I thought was interesting, was he did have a pro who would step in for shots where he needed help, where it would like look realistic. And I'm assuming that had to be that for other cases as well, and other moments where it just had to look professional. So I wanted to ask you about how you and Bob worked that out, where when a tennis pro would step in to complete a shot, almost like a stunt stunt double, and how you maybe framed those in a way to make it look real, because as you watch the film, it's completely seamless. But can you talk about maybe some specific moments where you had to like frame it a certain way, bring in the double? Like, how did that conversation come in?
Yeah. So, the first thing was just gauging how much our actors were going to be able to give us. And so when we started, we were thinking it was going to be very little. I mean, they had never played tennis and they only have 5 months, and literally the first practice, you throw the ball and it looked like pop off the racket.
Right.
So it was just like, oh, okay, well, we're not going to get much. Like, it's going to be pretty much all doubles. But through that practice, we had Eric Tano, who was actually a coach with both Venus and Serena when they were young. And we mentioned his name over there at Rick Macy, and Isha, who is also a tennis player. Apparently, she was one of the best Williams in the family to play tennis. She just got hurt. And so they had other athletes in that family. They just, they ended up with 2, but all those girls are great. And Isha, she was so nuanced with the racket. And so what we focused on was really movement. Let's take the ball out entirely with Venus, with Sanaya and Demi, and just because then they can swing freely and not feel like they have to hit the ball. And so being a baseball player, I understand what a good look like that stroke looks like. They're getting jammed. Like, you wouldn't hit the ball that way, or it looks like the angle in which you're holding the racket is going to be a home run. Like, we have to kind of work out those things. And so it's just movement, side to side, front to back. And so Eric worked with those girls 3 to 4 days a week for months. And they got actually really good. Like, Sanaya's backhand was like, she's a lefty, so her backhand was like legit. Like, she was able to legit hit a backhand. So we were like, okay, we know we can sell her on the backhand side. The forehand is a little, it's a little suspect. And so we would, favor her backhand side. Demi's forehand was a little better, so we would favor that, and we would use their strengths to really film them doing that, and then supplement when we need it. And so they really got to a pretty proficient level for what an 8 or 9-year-old who was at a high level would be doing. And so they're 13, so they're a little bit more developed, which the girls were at that time. They were more developed than their counterparts. And so we used that to our advantage. They were slightly older than Venus and Serena were, and so they got to a level that was pretty good. And then what we wanted to do was show a progression of tennis throughout the film. So they're 8 and 9, and then they're 10 and 11, and then they're 11 and 12. And so we had different sets of girls for those, for those periods of time, so that the ball was getting harder. They were hitting the ball harder, basically, like they were developing. And so their strokes were getting better. And it's hopefully seamless in the movie, but we had, multiple doubles. We had a set for juniors. We had a set for the final matches. And so you can see the power and the progression once they get to Florida. It's very different. When she's hitting the ball on the court, against the ball machine, when Will comes onto the court, that's a real tennis pro, who's smashing the ball, and it's fantastic. But Sanaya did all of that motion. It wasn't like, okay, you just show up. She everything that our doubles did, our actors did, and our actors are like 95% of it. It's a very small percentage of shots that are the actual doubles or face replacement. And so, it was a combination, a lot of trial and error on the show, as with tennis, waiting for balls to hit the line and, hit it here or hit it at camera. You have to wait. A lot of rushing when you're working with children, but we got it in, and we had a great team. We had a great support staff. So
it was seamless.
Oh, well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, there was.
My goal is always, make the best movie we possibly can. And then, let's make the best tennis movie that's ever been made. The bar was set with some of these other films. Like, they had done a great job in Battle of the Sexes and Borg versus McEnroe. But I was like, I think we can continue to work on what they did great and make it better. And that's what filmmaking is, right? Like, they took it to that place, but we can thank you for those films, because at least they give us a foundation to work off of. And so, I was so happy that other movies have been made before, so we can see what we liked and what we didn't, and we can take the things that we wanted to make some adjustments, make it stronger, make it work for our story.
Ray, I want to switch gears completely, because there's a scene that has stuck with me since I've seen your film, and it's the drive-by scene, which is totally incredible. And it's such a fork in the road moment for Richard, that if things had played out a little bit differently, we'd have a totally different story to tell. How accurate was that scene? Did that actually happen to him? And could you talk about the larger implications? It felt to me like it almost saved his life.
Yeah, look, I think the stories we heard was that Richard was, in daily interactions on the court. The family would talk about playing tennis, and a drive-by would go by. They would all drop to the ground, wait for the bullets to go by, and then just finish, stand up and finish practice. And like, it's very nonchalant in the way they would discuss like violence in the neighborhood. It was just around. It's Compton in the 80s, but they would also talk about like the fun neighbor and like, but there was a drug house across the street. And like, but growing up in a similar community, like I know what that's like. Like you don't necessarily like fear walking outside of your house. It's just not how it is. Like it's just part of how you grow up, and that there's violence, but you're sort of accustomed to it. And so I certainly didn't want the violence in the film to overtake what it was like. And it was through their perspective. So yes, they were dealing with certain things on a daily basis. Like for me, when Will's coming home and the cop car just like zips by, like that's enough to show that there's police presence. You hear helicopters, like you hear ambulances. Like these are things that just are in your like where in certain neighborhoods you don't hear those things. Mm-hmm. Like that's a constant like backdrop and landscape in Compton and areas like it. And so I just wanted it to feel like a fabric, a part of the film, rather than just like, hey, let's focus so much on it. Mm-hmm. But of course it is a story point. Like it is a story point for us. It's part of so we had to fit it for what it was, and using a little bit of dramatic license to say, okay, like would it have happened here or something like that? But it's an amalgamation of stories that we heard and kind of things that happen in their life. And so, look, we had to take certain liberties to depict the violence. And I thought, okay, these are the ways that we can do it. It doesn't make it not true. It just makes it in the way that works for our story. Mm-hmm. For sure, he was physical with these gang members at some point. Like these are things that we heard that we know to be true. And so, how we were able to do it to work for us, were how we tried to shape it best.
Ray, I was actually really interested in knowing this, and I don't know if this is like a ridiculous question, but when the film ended and you show us the real footage that Richard had been shooting, did Will Smith, as King Richard, really film any of his footage with those cameras and in those scenes? Like, was he ever really rolling just to do it, or was it not? Were those cameras never not rolling?
Wait, so sorry, just the footage at the end of the movie when the credits?
No, the footage at the end of the movie I know is real footage that Richard shot himself. I was wondering in the film itself when Will Smith's character is doing it, like is he actually recording in those moments? Like, do you have that footage for real?
Oh yeah, we do. Yeah, we recorded everything, with real cameras. I mean, and that's the way we work. Like we wanted it to feel real and like film all those things that Will was doing. So just in case we ended up using it, and you just never know. And, Will's, I would call him method to a degree. He's not like the method you can't like talk to in between takes, but he's certainly like, he's locked in and, he wants everything to be believable and real. And so he would go there. So yeah, no, we have that footage somewhere. I don't know if we use it in the movie.
Oh,
we currently have it.
That's cool. I was wondering if that existed. That'd be a cool like DVD featurette of like.
I'm sure he's got it. Maybe I should ask him. I'll text him after this and say.
Yeah, yes. Ask him if he has
it. When we got to that real footage over the end credits, there's a character from your movie that I was really happy to see was extremely accurate, and that's the bus. The bus that drove the family all over the place. But I also know that like the challenge of filming in a bus and the different point of views that you have to show can be really overwhelming. So do you have multiple bus sets? Did you have an actual bus that moved? Did you have a way to shoot from the POV of the passenger seat and into the back? How did you overcome those obstacles?
Yeah, it was a lot of musical chairs for sure. A lot of hood mounts. We used the biscuit. We use different tools at different times to help us tell that story, or those stories in the bus. But like, I hired Pam Martin as an editor, and she cut Little Miss Sunshine, and I was like, she's perfect. I mean, I was like, there's nobody better for a VW, bus sequence, and a character-driven story. I say that jokingly.
She's like, amazing. Here I go again, another bus.
She did The Fighter and Little Miss Sunshine, which were like comparable movies for me when making this movie, and I loved like the humor and the dry humor that she has in those films, but I also love the dramatic performances that she's able to get out of, Bale and Wahlberg and now Will. And so I knew we had a heavy hitter in the edit room to help us. But yeah, in terms of the VW bus, they're small. And there's a lot of girls, so there's only so many different places that you could put the camera. But yeah, we used the biscuit, we used tow rigs, we used everything you could possibly think of in order to kind of shuffle it around or work for those particular sequences. But yeah, those days they suck up a lot of time. Anytime you put people in a car, there goes half a day. I mean, you might as well, that's what happens. But it was worth it. And we had Chris Santrella, one of the like premier riggers in the game, who's worked with Robert on 20 pictures, or Ian Kincaid, our gaffer, incredible folks to help us make that happen. And so Robert's team is deep, man. Those guys, it's so deep. Like, I felt like I had so many filmmakers on set. It wasn't just like technicians or folks that just shot, like everybody from first AC, like filmmaker, like these guys like are filmmakers. And it was amazing to see, because it was the first time that I felt like it was like position players teaching me like how much value like it goes down in a way that I could use it. I could use it to my advantage. And whether it was like rigging a crane in a particular place, or how we can get into certain spaces with something, or move a wall, or use certain light to our advantage. Like, where on my first film, first of all, we didn't have the money. Everything's handheld because we had to be. Like, it's just different. Like, you have more tools and access to those things, but you have folks that know how to man that equipment in a way to help tell their story. And when you listen, which hopefully I can do pretty well, you hear, like, you can gain some valuable things. And so I just became a sponge with all of those folks, and really tried to use all of those things to our advantage to hopefully make the film feel layered and textured and all the things that you hope for when you watch a movie.
Well, Ray, they're wrapping us up. I mean, we literally had so many questions for you. I want to shout out Chris Bauer's score. I think that the soundtrack, and like even like hearing Little Alice in Chains or Green Day tracks, it was all so immersive. Every choice was perfect. It immersed you in the world. We just want to say thank you for your time, and you should be very proud of the work you did. And thank you for your conversation, because it was just interesting to hear so much passion went into this, and I can't wait for our audience to hear this interview.
Man, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. And yeah, Chris Bowers is amazing, man. You guys, like he's on another level. So
yeah, I agree.
I'm glad you guys felt that. Well, thank you again for your time. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Continued success.
Thanks, Ray.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye now. First off, we have to thank Warner Brothers, but of course I want to thank Ray for coming by the show and talking about King Richard. I thought it was a really great movie. It's truly one of those inspirational sports movies, and I love the way that in the interview he broke down his approach to filming tennis, because anyone who tackles a sports movie at this point is going to be judged against previous sports films that come before it. And while there aren't a ton of tennis films to compare to, you heard how he sort of discussed Battle of the Sexes and the other one, Borg versus McEnroe, which is another terrific film with Shia LaBeouf that I don't think a ton of people saw, but probably do need to check out because of the way that those tennis scenes are edited. And just hearing his thought process about the different ways that he worked on the serve and worked on the strengths of the forehand and backhand of his young actors. So much insight went into the process of filming his sports scenes, and it really comes through in the movie. This is a definite crowd pleaser. It's going to teach you a lot of stuff about Venus and Serena that even if you are familiar with them, you probably do not know, and is really going to open your eyes to the type of performances that Will Smith is still capable of giving. And so I definitely think you guys need to go check it out and be pretty savvy to where the film is in terms of the awards ceremony. Jake and I are going to give much longer reviews of King Richard on the Friday show, so make sure you're tuning into the main show of ReelBlend this week. If you're here on the YouTube channel, go down and hit subscribe and turn on your notifications. If you're listening to this in all the different places where you get your podcast needs met, head to the description, find out how you can go to YouTube and see the visual aspect of the show. And of course, if you want to be a premium member, you can head over to cinemablend.com/ReelBlend Premium and figure out how you can get some additional perks that go with being a ReelBlend listener. Until then, we'll see you Friday on the main show, and we'll be back here on YouTube very soon.